Hello there, voltage modular people, PoohBear here, and welcome to my channel. And I'm just going to do a quick overview of the flip-flop counter, or more to the point, mainly to do with the new changes which have actually come into it. As part of my process, obviously, when I make changes, is I actually go back to old patches to make sure everything is fully compatible. And I thought, well, rather than making a new patch to do a demonstration of what the new changes do, I thought, hey, why don't I just record me actually going through and changing some of my old patches, and you might pick up a few little tips along the way. Now, these patches originally you've actually got, for the people who've got the PoohBear Goodie Bag bundle. I originally released them, and I made, one of the goals was every module in here, apart from my modules, were done using Nucleus. So you don't need to go out and find any other modules. That was the whole purpose behind that. Hence, I'd done things a little bit differently than I would do, obviously, if I had core. But hey, that's good for demonstrating what we're actually doing here. Now, one of the first things I'm actually going to do, actually I'm going to grab one of my new modules, because at the moment, the tri-gate here actually starts the two storing forwards and starts the whole process off. But I have to come along and sort of manually kind of stop what's going on. So I'm going to change that to start with. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go in and add myself. I've got myself my little project runtime. And CA, if you're watching, I'd love to be able to right click, add a module, and it to fit it in this space here. Obviously, if this is a very tiny module, it would have put it over here in this gap. So it would be nice if wherever we right click, that's where you actually put the module. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is scroll back to, so I can get my trig gate on the screen, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and grab all these cables at the same time. That's going to go into start. Then I'm going to hold down my control key and click the stop, which I think is the command key on the Mac, is it? And I'm just going to click on the on-offs. Originally, when this patch was made, the on-offs did not exist. So now I should be able to come over here, hit start, and hit stop. I've also made a small little update to the gators as well. So before the inactive, not the highlighted steps, when they were, it was their turn to be active, even though they're marked as inactive, they was very hard to see. I've now got this little white border going around them, so I think they're a lot easier to see what's going on and what steps you are actually on. So there's a little change there. So anyway, let's get back to what I was looking at originally, which is my flip-flop counter over here. And in fact, I'm just going to change the color as well, so it's a little bit easier to see maybe for some people. There we go, you can see what's going on. So the main thing I've added is these constants, and the reason I call them constant, admittedly, if you've got a cable in like this one, let's put that one there, it works like an offset, but obviously I can unplug that cable, and then whatever value I've set that to, hence why I refer to it as a constant, that will actually come down the A route, and then obviously you can say I want it to go to the X or the Y port, and the same with the B. I've also added it over onto the, what I refer to as the internal flip-flop section, but these knobs affect the constant, the one trig, and the per count. So you can now have, rather than a standard, you have a 5-volt trigger, you can actually have it as minus whatever voltage you want. So it's between plus and minus 5 volts for both of these, and that's what these knobs are set to as well. But if you've got a 5 volt coming in and you change that to 5 volt, you've actually got 10 volts going through the system. So just sort of bear that in mind. It's just going to add that onto it as well. The big advantage, obviously, having these knobs internally is because, as I said probably in a previous video, I do a lot of, where I take the DC source, or I take a fixed signal coming in, and I'm flopping between that. Well, it means we can remove certain things. So in one of my projects, I had a number of flip-flop counters. It allowed me to remove about 6 or 7 other modules and about 15 or 16 cables, which is great. It just saves a little bit on that resource, and that's the whole point of it. So in this particular case, I'm using this step sequencer purely to get the volts out, so I'm not even using the step sequencer side of it. As I said, because obviously this is Nucleus doesn't have anything equivalent to the DC source, But obviously you can use this, you can go up to 5 volts and using the attenuator, and you can actually obviously get the voltage down. In my particular case, I just wanted a 1 volt, I've inverted it, so I've got a -1 going into there, and in fact if you look in this one here, I've got 2 cables, so then I've got -2 volts coming into here. What it's actually doing is it's going into this flip-flop counter, that's going off to my first contact, so it's just doing the display. This is going into the pitch, and the pitch has actually got 2 cables in, so I'm taking a feed from somewhere else. You can see I've already got a very low octave, so I'm making this a -1, so I'm taking it down an octave, and then when I do the flop, I'm taking it down 2 octaves from its current state, and then I'm flip-flopping between. That's what I refer to as my 80s bass, so I'm sort of just doing a flip-flop on the bass between the octaves. And as I say, this is obviously what we refer to as more of a control sort of signal coming into here, and the one which is coming into this flip-flop counter is audio, because it's coming from an amp. I'm coming in here, and this one's actually doing the panning. So when you hear the bass, you can actually hear it. It's jumping between the octaves, and it's also doing panning. Okay, what I'm going to do quite simply is I'm going to delete these 2. Boom, they've gone. So obviously we've now, obviously if I play, it's going to sound, the bass is going to sound a lot higher, and it's not going to do any rocking. -1. -2. Nice and simple. So that is now done. That's, you know, that is working the way it was before, just by me setting these 2 knobs. Done. There's nothing else for me to do on this particular project, so I'm going to actually open up another project and have a look at another one. So let's very quickly go and grab another project. Hey, let's grab that Rush. I won't save that. I would do usually, but I'm not going to save it today. Let's see what we've got going on here. So this is my Rush project. This has got quite a few things going on. It's got the same sort of principle where I'm using a step sequencer to take a 5 volt out. So we can correct that one. I've got another, I've got flip-flop counters all over. So let's actually have a look at them. So I'm not sure 100% what's going on with this project. Maybe I should double check before I actually start a video in, but hey, I like to do things on the fly. It's so much more fun. So I think the first thing I'm actually going to do again, can I scroll this over, is this is going to be my start trigger probably, he says. I'm on the right screen. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? So I'm going to get my little project up again. So we go project runtime. And again, we've got to hold down the shift key to grab all them cables at the same time. We're going to put that on the start. And ideally what I need to do is see, oops, I can come onto here now. I've got to see what I'm resetting. So that's one storing forward. There's another storing forward, which is important. Let me just scroll out a little bit. I don't think you really need me doing sound effects. Let's scroll out a bit more. That's okay, that's okay. Oh, we've got another storing forward down here. And I think that's all okay. So again, from my stop, I'm going to come here, click on control or command, and then click on all the offs I can see on my storing forward. Oh, there's another one over here. Let's quickly click on that one, and there's one down here. So theoretically, we should be able to click start. And I can stop it. Hooray! And now what we need to do, I just need to go through and just double check and see what's happening with each of these flip-flop counters. So I don't have to touch that one because obviously it's the way it's getting the information in is variable. So if it's variable, I'm not going to obviously be probably playing around with my consonants. That's a variable one, which is no good. That one is, yeah, that's a variable one. Yeah, it's coming from there. Same again, we've got another variable one, because most of the time it is variable. Here's an interesting one, and the reason I'm actually going to pick on this one, because this one is getting reset by this flip-flop counter over here, and this one is definitely getting the signals from a constant, so we need to update that one there. I did have someone ask me a question the other day, because I was just a little bit confused, or you know, when would you ever use the kind of forever switch? And this is a classic case of when we hit play, and I'll probably play out on this particular project, it will actually starts off playing this beat. It's got a funny sort of off beat, and then after 4 counts, it flips over and it plays a box standard kind of beat, and it'll play that forever. But obviously I've got another counter up the other top, which we'll have a look at in a minute, which I think's running every 2 bars. That's doing a count. It's doing quite, so I think it does have to do 64 bars, and after 64 bars, it'll actually reset this one, so it'll actually go back to playing that again. So that's what like forever's quite good. It's good for starting stuff off, or you could even have it like a really high count for ending something. So when you're getting towards the end of the song, you're going for the forever mode and switch over just to sort of finish off your track or something. So you can use it for all kinds of things, but that's just something I tend to use it for, especially at the beginning of my sort of tracks. I need to scroll up, don't I? Where am I going? Whoops, I need to go up that way. So this is my flip-flop counter, and I need to scroll across this a little bit more. So yeah, so it's getting this 5-volt signal from there, which is coming in here, and we're sending it out to a couple of different places. I couldn't even tell you where that second one's going to. It might even be going down to first contact. No, it's going somewhere else. Oh, I'm resetting this flip-flop counter down here. Oh, I missed this one. No, so it's not getting a constant. I'm just making sure that's not getting a constant. Now, the interesting thing about this one here is, as I say, I've got 5 volts coming across and into this one. So I can obviously just sort of click on that and say, right, let's just delete that. And I can actually just whack that up to 5 volts. And that's it, we're done, it should be working. But because, as I say, this device has actually changed over time, because it's a pure 5 volts, or because it's purely just looking for a trigger, because I know what it's doing, it's obviously hitting the reset on the other one, so it just needs to be a simple trigger would actually do on them two. I could, if I wanted to, was to move that actually into, because it's at the moment, this Y is on a flop, so I could just simply move that onto the flop here and put this even on a trigger. If I put it onto a constant and then whacked that to 5 volt, it'd be exactly the same as that one. And the reason, as I say, I had this slightly separate is because there's a number of projects I've got where I double up my counters, so they're exactly the same threshold and count, where I've got signals coming through which are constant signals, which this will handle, and then I'll have my variable signals coming through. So one will be doing variable, one will be doing constant, but because I've added this extra section, I could actually condense all that down into one module rather than having 2. I'm all about trying to save simple cycles, you know. So yeah, so I've removed a few devices and a few wires. Well, big deal. Well, it is a big deal with some of my larger projects because I'm on the border of getting crackles and pops in the audio, and just removing a few extra wires and a few things, you know, it just takes it under control ever so subtly. And sometimes as well, I find it makes it clearer in the project just by having fewer modules. So it's great from a clarity sort of state. So this here should work exactly the same as I say, having this wire into here. But as I say, that's just something to bear in mind. At the time, again, when this project was made, obviously none of these controls down this side actually existed. So that should be it. That should be it for it working that side as well. So, well, there we go. All I can say is thank you for watching, and bye for now, I suppose.